Okay. Some definitions before we start. This guy up here is called the index number. This there is called the radical sign because it's pretty radical. And believe it or not, the 8 right there is called the radicand, as opposed to the radicand. Okay? And the gist of this, and again, everybody looks at this and they think it's a division problem. It has nothing to do with division. Notice this little squiggly thing here. This is not a division box. Okay? It's a root box. It's a radicand. And the question you need to answer is, what number times itself the index number of times gives you the radicand? What number times itself, the index number of times gives you the radicand, which means this. I am looking for, by the way, this is the cube root of 8. You want to know what number times itself 3 times. What same number times itself 3 times gives you 8. And there is no magic formula. There's no mathematical process other than trial and error. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through it here. Okay, first of all, you might as well try 1, but 1 times 1 times 1 is only 1, so it can't be 1. 2 times 2 times 2, 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8, so the answer to this is 2. The cube root of 8 is 2. Now notice, again, this is kind of the thing that undoes exponents and powers, because if you took this and rearranged it, if you take 2, let me pick a different color here. If you take 2 to the 3rd power, you get 8. So roots are really the undoing of exponents and powers. You'll find they're kind of related in some warped and twisted sort of way. Let's look at another one. How about this? What is the, all right, this one here. You'll notice that in this one I didn't put an index number. If there's no index number, it's an assumed 2, and it's a square root. We don't put 2's down just because normally the things we do are square roots. Okay, so this is just asking you what number times itself gives you 16. And again, there's no magic formula. A lot of people want to say 8, but that's not right because 8 times 8 is 64. Okay, it is 4 times 4 is 16. So the square root of 16 is 4. Okay. Or if you take 32 and you take the, gosh, what is it, the 5th root? What is the 5th root of 32? Again, no easy way to do it other than kind of write it out. What number times itself? 5 times gives you 32. Now, like I said, when you start multiplying exponentially like this, numbers get real big real fast. So I'm going to try 3, because that's a pretty small number. But if I try 3, watch what happens. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. 27 times 3 is 81. And 81 times 3 is 243. It's way too big. So then you just drop down. Your choices are either 1 or 2. And 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Times 2 is 16. Times 2 is 32. Okay. Again, no magic formula. It's not a division problem. They're just square roots and whatever roots. By the way, since we're talking about it here, okay, the ones that work out, these are called perfect roots or perfect squares. And there are not very many of them, children. Not very many of the ones that work out. You probably could name them for me. The first one that works out is the square root of 1 because that's 1. What would be the next perfect square? Well, what's 2 times 2? Square root of 4. What's 3 times 3? Square root of 9. So what happens when a number falls between there? What if I get what is the square root of 3? Anybody? What is the square root of 3? What number times itself gives you 3? And you can't put 1 times 3. It don't work that way. Jacob? 1 times 1 is 1.
Oh.
Square root of 3. Sammy? 1.5 times 1.5 is 2.25. Gary? No, 1.3 times 1.3 is 1.69. Something like that. Peter? Here is your life lesson. There is no answer to this that makes sense. Okay? The answer to square roots that don't work out are called irrational. Okay, because if you were actually doing this out, this would be 1 point something, but that decimal would never ever end. In other words, if I take my little where's my tools? If I take my little calculator and I type in there the square root of 3, okay, this gives me 1.7320508075688877 is my answer. But that only stops because my calculator only has that many digits that it will let me do. Okay? This number would keep going on forever, and because it goes on forever and never ends, it's called irrational. Now, that doesn't mean life is hopeless for all involved, okay, because we can get awful close to what it is. I mean, we know that it's very close to 1.73, so we'll say, okay, close is good enough for us, and we'll call it 1.73 if we have to use it. Okay, but there's only certain ones that work out. You know, the square root of 1, square root of 4, square root of 9, square root of 16, square root of 25, square root of 36. Everything else, you know, if I give you what is the square root of 21, it's not going to work out for you. Usually just leave it as a square root of 21. Because it's going to be an irrational number that doesn't make sense if you try to do it out. But they won't give you those. They'll give you ones that work out. But I just thought I'd prep you for the life. I just thought I'd prep you for the good life. And something else along those same lines, they give you a problem that looks like this. 4 inches cubed. What do you suppose the answer to that is? 4 inches cubed. By the way, that parenthesis means you've got to cube everything inside of it. And it's not 12. Please don't tell me 12, because it's not 4 times 3. What does this really mean? It means this. 4 inches times 4 inches times 4 inches. And 4 times 4 times 4 is, Peter?
64.
64 what? Right. Do not forget that when there's labels that get cubed, they have to get cubed too. So that's why 64 inches cubed is your answer.